This video contains major spoilers for the books. If you have not read the entire series, certain elements will be revealed to you for the first time here instead of their proper context. Continue at your own discretion.
Hi, Max.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. Welcome to WoT the Adaptation, where we discuss adaptations from one medium to another. And tonight we're doing our season wrap-up of The Wheel of Time Season 1. As you can see, Glenn, our geeky hippie, is not here with us tonight. He had some dental reasons why he wasn't able to record tonight. But I am super excited to welcome Rajesh, aka Moradin, aka the King of Chats. Thanks for being here with us. I'm so excited.
Hello. Yes, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So the other thing that I wanted to share with you all, this is from Glenn. He had written something that he wanted for me to share with everyone since he couldn't be here tonight. So I'm going to read that and then we will dive into it. So as everyone who's been watching knows, I, Glenn, have not been entirely happy with the choices the show has gone with. There have been many things I disliked about season 1, some intensely, but none of that has caused me to send threats or direct attacks towards Sarah Nakamura or Rafe Judkins or anyone else involved with the show. Why? Because I'm a reasonable human being who understands right from wrong. Being upset over the choices Rafe made is a valid opinion, but it's not an excuse for threats or personal attacks. Sure, I made comments on our show that Rafe deserves the dragon's fang, but it's not like I'm going to go carve the fang on his house or expect that there'd be any societal reaction against him from that, like there would be in the world of books. The segment category of dragon's fang on the show it's there for fun, just a way to describe people doing questionable things in the episode, etc. Not a threat or attack on anyone. So I hope nobody actually takes it as such or permission to make threats or verbal attacks themselves. Even though I object to some of Rafe's choices, I still support the man and his work on this show. He did not ruin The Wheel of Time. The books are still there for us to read. So in light of the recent backlash of attacks against Rafe and Sarah, please let me remind everyone to be kind to Rafe and Sarah, as well as your fellow travelers on this ball of rock and water flying through space. And don't forget to be awesome. Yeah, unfortunately, that needs to be said, I guess. So here we are. All right, well, so here we are trying to wrap up season 1 and kind of giving our summary of thoughts on the whole season. So since we tend to talk about, how the show works as an adaptation, I thought we should start with talking about changes throughout the season that we liked and didn't like. So these are kind of like our top picks as we've gone episode by episode, we've covered it. But like, as you look at the season as a whole, what were the things that you most liked or disliked that they changed from the books? And then like, what impacts did those things have? So Rajesh, what do you think?
All right, I think I'm going to go straight to episode 8 and say that I really liked the meeting at the Eye with Ishii and Rand and Moraine, of course. I thought it was well handled. We know it's like not the best in the books. You see everyone kind of say they don't really understand what happens there. And specifically, I'm talking about the Eye, so not Tarman's Gap. I think that's another discussion. But specifically the Eye and that encounter and kind of making it take elements from the last battle and kind of take elements from Egwene's testing. And I think the decision to not go with like a big one power battle, I think that really worked and I really enjoyed it. So we can keep kind of the one power battle for later. And then I thought this was quite enjoyable, and Ferris was great with Ishmael.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think in terms of like, I think most of the stuff was covered from the Eye in terms of the pool of sighting and stuff. Like we know they shipped the horn to like under Agelmar's throne.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the only thing that was really missing there was kind of like the dragon banner, which I hope we still see, but I don't know if it's critical if it's left out. I do hope we see it though. And then the seals, which I think is the more interesting thing, is I hope we still kind of see the portable seals, because I still want to see kind of the debate that Rand and Egwene has later in the series.
whether to break them. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can kind of talk about that a little bit, and then we can go to something that you didn't like, if you had another like thing that you wanted to share. So,
Mhm.
Max, thoughts on that change?
I liked the eye scene in general. Compared to the book to that, it works, you know. Uh, I was more disappointed in the ending because we didn't get a one power scene in Tarwin's Gap, like you said, is a different thing.
Mhm.
Rand's choice, the whole allowing Egwene her own free will, is pretty big, and it foreshadows a lot of future novels. And doing that now is actually a pretty good change, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was one of my favorite changes also. And that for me, that overall decision like elevated the finale quite a bit for me, like made it really work. Because I think that was a great choice. All of it, as you guys have said, the doing it more as like a moral conflict rather than a one power battle, and the way it sets up other things to come. And it's pretty important. So I like that quite a bit as well. Um, yeah. All right. So Rajesh, did you have like a change that you didn't like that you wanted to talk about?
I mean, I like most of the things. I think if there's anything I didn't enjoy as much was probably things they had to do out of necessity. And that's kind of like setting up the backstories in the pilot. So especially like the changes that they did for Perrin and also for Matt, I understand that both of them were kind of necessary to kind of further their character development and get it on screen. But yeah, I guess I just didn't enjoy it as much as I wish we could have got there a different way, and maybe they could have. But
Yeah,
I think it was necessary, but I didn't care for it. I didn't enjoy it.
it's understandable.
Yeah.
Max, what were your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, the backstory changes they're not on my list of dislikes, really.
Mhm.
I didn't mind them. They were just kind of like, yeah, live with them, would live on them. They weren't major.
Those ended up being like a little bit of a mixed bag for me. Like there's like pluses and minuses to it. Like I think overall, I like the changes for Matt because what I found was just that I enjoyed his character quite a bit more. I mean, I don't particularly like Matt in The Eye of the World or even The Great Hunt. And but I really liked him, especially like in the first 4 episodes. Was, you know, and then he kind of like obviously like he gets totally into the dagger, and then after, so he kind of fades away a little bit, but the first 4 episodes I really liked him a lot, and so I feel like those changes helped make his character someone I could connect to. And with Perrin, you know, in a way it's like I'm glad they gave him those things, because otherwise he would have been a bit more in the background, you know, even than he was in some of these episodes. So I think it was important. And I weirdly like wasn't expecting to, but like really liked Layla like as a character, even though she was there for like no time. I like just enjoyed her. So I'm mixed on that one. But you know, it definitely wasn't one of my, you know, least favorite things. So that was interesting, but I wish we could have gotten a little bit more like payoff for him in the end of this season related to that. So it's kind of just like putting it off a little bit, but there was some good scenes. Like I really like the scene between Perrin and Egwene in episode 5, like when he's telling her about that. So like that scene was really good, and that was sort of like a payoff of the pilot changes for him. I feel like maybe I wish there was a bit more after that, you know, that we didn't get, but overall, yeah. All right. So Max, what have you got for us? What were your top picks?
My top like of the season for changing the source is the whole Logain arc, with, you know, Moraine and Lan and Nynaeve finding Logain and the other Asade. That whole sequence of events, I really like that sequence. As a change, it was great to add a little bit of his backstory in there. I still wonder if he somehow made the King of Galdon his warder, but I still wonder because there was just that little bit of connection they had.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah.
Let's see. I have a few more if you want to just go through those quick.
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. I liked Moraine and Suan's tower arc.
Oh yeah.
Just their whole interaction.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was a change from the books. They don't go to the tower in the first book, obviously.
Yeah.
But how they adapted that, I felt they did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Pacing the episode was kind of, wish the pacing was a little bit better than how they did it. But I still liked their interactions and how that all played out.
Mm-hmm.
My dislike was the Rand, Perrin, Egwene love triangle.
Oh.
I was not really a big fan of that. It just kind of, it was unneeded drama.
Okay.
And then I put like not a thumbs up, but not a thumbs down for the ending, meaning both Tarwin's Gap and the Eye. Because I liked the Eye. Tarwin's Gap was like, I liked it, but I would have much preferred to have seen Rand go nuclear.
Okay.
That's pretty much my fast rundown of.
Okay, that was a good rundown. Let me see if I can try to you brought up some really good things. Let me see if I can try to touch on them. I mean, I definitely agree with you about Logain. I think that was a great addition. I was expecting that was going to be good and like that, and I did enjoy that quite a bit. And it was interesting how even when he wasn't super active in a scene, he was adding something to it. So that was great overall. And what was the other thing you said that you liked?
Moraine Suan.
Oh, Moraine and Swan. Absolutely love that. Yeah, that was great. And that kind of fits in with some of my choices as well. That was so needed, I think, because it just gives us this whole other layer of insight into Moraine's character, which is so important. And that had been a change I had been wanting them to make specifically. So I like that quite a bit. And yeah, I don't know, the Perrin, Egwene, Rand thing. Well, my rant on that whole thing was that it wasn't a love triangle. I know everyone was really bothered by it. And I'm like, but it's not a love triangle because there's nothing happening, right? It was basically a misunderstanding, I think. And I think a couple things. I think they needed to have some kind of conflict in that episode. It didn't necessarily have to be that, but it had to be something within the group. I think it needed, and I could have seen it playing out differently if Matt had been there. Maybe it would have been a different conflict, or he would have responded to it in a way that would have kind of shifted it to something else. But I mean, I think it didn't that particular element didn't need to come to the forefront. It wasn't a thing that needed to be dealt with. It was fine as sort of subtext, which I think was there. The subtext was there throughout, and that was fine. But I do think they needed some conflict, and I definitely didn't feel like it was a triangle, because there's no conflict over oh, which one's Egwene gonna pick, none of that. So I didn't feel like it was really a triangle, but I do think maybe that particular drama wasn't needed, but a drama was needed, a conflict between them was needed. I felt like that was needed in that episode, so I didn't mind that too much. And yeah, I don't know, I didn't mind. I kind of like that Rand didn't go to Tarwin's Gap. That is not to say that I loved everything about how Tarwin's Gap did play out, because I didn't, but I didn't think it needed to be Rand. I was fine with him. We're gonna see him do stuff like that later, so I'm kind of okay with it not happening. I don't know, that's a lot of stuff. Rajesh, what do you think?
I agree with all of those. I think Logain was great. I think I enjoyed everything they expanded upon Logain, from the fabulous cold open for episode 4.
That was good.
Which is great. And I think they pretty much follow the Logain plot, as in the Eye. And I'm reading Lord of Chaos right now, and I just got to Logain's part with Nynaeve, and I totally hear Alvaro's voice now when I read Logain and stuff. And it was fun to see that callback to the Tar Valon scene, where he's laughing at Rand and Matt and stuff. And
Yeah.
it was great to see all of that. He is still in the show. So everything with Logain, I just love.
Yeah.
And but I think as far as the triangle, not triangle, unfortunately, that particular scene in episode 7 was like maybe the only scene I didn't like in episode 7 for what I think was otherwise a great episode.
Yeah.
But I didn't like totally take it or anything. It was just like, okay, this is fine. Yeah. It didn't persist too long or anything, so it was like not like a super drag.
Yeah. All right. Well, so for me, I guess there's like, I mean, in general, I felt like I liked most of the changes. Like I'm pretty on board with it. So I was trying to pick out things that I think added the most. I mean, so kind of going off of what you said, Max, like the things that were sort of expanded upon, things that we didn't get to see in the books, or that like we know they happened, but we didn't get to see it, or it didn't, like we didn't get to see it play out. Like that was for me some of the biggest, strengths of things that they changed. So just to mention some different ones, I mean, like Moraine and Swan was a great one, but like in general, we got more of like romantic relationship development. So like the Lan and Nynaeve relationship we got to see that explored. That was great. And you could even say like, I mean, Egwene and Rand are not really like, they don't feel like a romance to me in the books. I mean, they are, but like just the way it's written, like so early on, we get like Min saying like, yeah, you're not going to work out. And just they seem like they're in different places. We never really get to see them like have any romantic moments. Like it just kind of seems like it's not really a thing from the start. So that was much more developed and much more impactful as a result. So those were great changes. Like I just liked the addition of all of those things that we didn't get to see in the books. And then the other thing that I wanted to sort of shout out, because I think it's a tricky thing that they had to do, and it ended up working pretty well for me, is the way they had to condense Rand and Matt and their whole sequence when they're separated from the rest. And it's essentially like, the especially episodes 3 and 4, where you have the scenes in Breen Spring and then the scenes at the Grinwell farm. Like in both of those episodes, I felt like their scenes were really strong. And you have it boiled down to sort of like 2 major locations and, some particular characters that they're interacting with that are sort of like taking the place of some other, many more smaller characters that were in the books. And each of those different locations had some really powerful scenes that really worked for me. So it was condensed a lot, which is a very tricky thing to do. But like, I liked those scenes a lot. I liked their scenes in those episodes. So I felt like that ended up working really well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it was I really enjoyed all of kind of Rand and Matt stuff together. And then when you get Tom in there, it was so enjoyable the whole time, those 2 episodes.
Yeah. Max, anything you wanted to comment on those before I move on to something else?
I was gonna mention that, like, when we did our previous episodes, I'm pretty sure the Dana scene was pretty much on all of our high ends.
It was great.
And same with the Matt and the little girl, his interactions with that and the family and all that was always great.
Those are some great scenes. Yeah.
The Rand Egwene relationship part, like in the books, I always felt it was like there was kind of like a high school sweetheart type thing. They went to prom, and that's about the extent of how well they were really together. And then they both go off to call, just kind of how their experience goes. Like, well, I'm going here and you're going there, so bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly how it feels.
Yes. Yeah, so it's really just, there's so much more to it in the show. So it's quite a bit better. Yeah. Maybe a low bar because the romances in the books are not necessarily their strongest points, but still.
And like I said on, I think it was our episode 7 video, I hadn't prior to in the books, I didn't catch on to Lan Egwene
Oh,
Lan
right.
Nynaeve
I know you
relationship
did
till
say
really
that.
late.
You did.
It's
Like,
pretty
I
much
don't-
like when they got married, like, oh, you liked each other. So it makes it
Yeah.
pretty obvious that they like each other in the show.
Yes, I would say we're well aware of that. Yeah. No, but I enjoyed all of that. Like, you know, was hoping that they would do that. And that's a thing that the show can do that the books, I guess, couldn't, but it was great. Yeah. Anyway, so things that I didn't like, I guess the biggest things for me really are just that, like, with the whole multitude of things that you have to like focus on, and you know, you do have some characters that were not as strong maybe, or not as well developed in the show as they were in the book. In general, I actually think that most of the characters are better developed at this point in the show than they were like at an equivalent point in the book, but there were a few that are less so. So like, to me, I think the ones that kind of stand out are like Perrin and Loyal. Like, they're not, those kind of fell a little bit behind. Like Perrin had some really good moments, but then like in the later episodes, I think maybe because he had to sort of like take over some of Matt's stuff or whatever, like there wasn't as much of like specifically development for Perrin. And then Loyal had like a great introduction. Like, I love Hamid Animashon's performance, but then after that like first scene with Rand, I don't get as much of a sense of like, you know, why is he there? Like, what makes him want to be a part of this? And so I feel like that was kind of like dropped a little bit. Like, I could tell they cut out some of Loyal's stuff that had been in the episode. So those are things that I missed a bit.
I was gonna say that's one of my things on episode 6, where it was very Moraine focused. I kind of wish they did more not Moraine on an episode, so we could have seen more Loyal, we could have seen more Rand and Matt and that. But if we had like a Rafe cut, we need the Rafe cut.
I felt the same because like there was like one scene in particular that was shown from Moraine's perspective, and I wish it hadn't been. Like, when she goes in and she like takes the dagger from Matt, like I wish we'd gotten like that establishing that scene, not with Moraine in her little cafe or whatever, but with like Matt and Rand, and then so we could have seen a little bit more of them to establish that scene, so it's more from like Matt's perspective or something. I think that would have been better, but
that was the whole episode, or the whole episode is Moraine's perspective,
absolutely.
Right? Because I think that's why Brandon Sanderson said that was one of his most interesting screenplays that he ever read. The one that was kind of hyped up and all that.
Yeah, he liked it a lot. I think he liked that conceit of like the whole thing is from Moraine's perspective. And I felt like maybe they liked that idea too much, and but then some of the scenes could have worked better if it hadn't been from her perspective. So that was my thought.
It jumped around a lot.
Yeah. Rajesh, anything else you wanted to add on like those points that I brought up?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. So I think we've kind of covered all of our big likes and dislikes for the changes. But so now what I'll jump to, and we can start with Max here. So things that you are looking forward to. So are there in like the next season, just thinking about what they might be adapting, like scenes you're particularly looking forward to, or things that you think like should be changed or removed, you know, for adaptation purposes?
Let's see. What I have for book scenes I look forward to or hope to remove. The one I look forward to isn't for season 2.
Oh, okay.
It's a little later. It's Rand in the Box.
Yeah.
I'm also looking forward to the Christmas merchandising for Rand in the Box. Yeah. I mean, you got the elf on the shelf and Rand in the Box. So.
Right.
I know, it just doesn't rhyme. That's the only problem.
The part I'm kind of hoping they remove honestly comes about with the fail plot line and her tricking Loyal into using the ways. That's like one of the most hated thing people dislike about Fail is her tricking Loyal to get her way to get to the Two Rivers.
Yeah.
And I think if they remove that, people might enjoy her character a little more.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy thing to just like massage. Yep. Okay. Okay, so I think I'm up next on that. So let's see. I did try to focus on like next season. So I mean, like I've thought a lot about you know, things that I think they need to like streamline and like condense. So those are things that like I'm expecting them to change. Like if we look at like I'm expecting like books 2 and 3 to kind of be like merged for season 2. So like I think like if you have like a Egwene and Nynaeve and Elaine and everybody like leaving the White Tower to go do a thing, like I think that should happen one time, not twice. Like not like first to go help Rand in Falma and then they come back and then again they go to like go after the Black Aja. Like that's you can't bounce back and forth like that. So I think it should happen one time and not twice. And similarly, like if we're gonna have like Rand and Ishii like confronting each other again next season, that should be like one more time, not 2 more times. So just those like redundancies, I think that they should like remove some of those. And then scenes that I'm like hoping we get next season, but I'm mentioning these specifically because like I just don't know, like these things could easily be changed, but like basically it involves like anything to do with like Matt and Tar Valon. So like reuniting with Tom there and like beating Gawain and Galad. Like I hope we get those scenes because they're kind of like small things that I really enjoy, but they're also not like totally essential, so I could see them like taking them out. So but I want them.
I think everyone wants the Matt versus Gawain Galad scene. So
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
it's classic.
What about you?
So I'm really looking forward to the further expansion of the world in season 2. I think if you've seen some of the castings that we have, we see that we're going to hopefully get like Elida, Elaine, Celine, just a whole bunch of Varen. So it's going to be. Can't wait to see all those characters come on. I hope we see some more kind of like foreshadowing of events, like, and hopefully like kind of what we talked about with the eye and Tar Valon. Maybe hopefully we'll see Egwene's testing, because from what I remember, there was a lot of foreshadowing in that scene. Because one of them was kind of what we saw with Joya and things at the eye, but then there's like the stuff with the 13 Murdral and Ison, right, converting you to the dark. And then I think there's also foreshadowing for Egwene being Amerlin in the testing.
There is,
so there's a ton of stuff there that would be great to see. And yeah, just looking forward to more Forsaken, getting Lanfear on there and other stuff. So there's a lot there.
Do you guys think that, I mean, I think we'll definitely have more Ishamael and Lanfear in season 2. Do you think any of the others will show up yet?
Someone had
so.
someone had mentioned that when Calder Seal broke, there were 8 cracks.
Yeah, I did. I saw that like mentioned too, and I wasn't totally sure if that was like deliberate or not. I do think 8 is probably the number based on the figurines. I think that's what it's going to be. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think we'll get them eventually. Like, I think it would be nutso to like introduce all 8 of them in one season personally, but you know, we'll see. Yeah.
I think Rafe said something about that there might be an unreliable narrator playing out in that scene. So it's like a small sliver of hope we might still get 13 Forsaken.
Yeah.
I think right now the safe bet is 8.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think that that's a good point in general. Like, I think they did that quite a bit in this season. Like, there's quite a lot of unreliable narrator stuff that we shouldn't forget, because like a lot of things that people are getting upset over, I mean, like, oh, they changed X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, are you sure they did? Or is it just like someone who thinks something that isn't true in the show? Because I think we're forgetting about that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, we see that in the first episode with Nynaeve's story about her apprentice that gets turned down for the White Tower.
Right.
She says like, oh, they saw her clothes or power level. And then we see in the show, they totally contradict that because that's basically Swan's story and they didn't reject her, right?
Yeah, she was like a nobody from a fishing village who probably showed up looking pretty ragged after she like made her own way there. And so my guess is like, Nynaeve's like mentor, like maybe like couldn't channel or like very weakly or something like that. Yeah, totally.
Unreliable narrators, huge for sure. I mean,
and it is in the books too. Like people don't know what they don't know, but they think they know stuff. Okay. So I think let's try to do our next one. So we have scene that you most remember or enjoy the most, and then we'll save our ones we didn't like for after that. So I think I'm starting first on this. And I mean, I can't pick just one, so I'm just gonna mention a few that like really stuck out for me. So for like randomly that Weep for Manetheren scene will just like pop into my head, like the song and everything. So like that's one of them. Really so many like Nynaeve and Lan scenes, but like that first one where like, you know, like she's like, ooh, you tried to kill me, like that whole thing. I love that. I mentioned this one already, but like Egwene and Perrin when they're in like Valda's tent, I like there's so many things about that I really loved. Lan when he's breaking down at the Steppin's funeral, the like the Moraine and Swan scene when it's just the two of them, and then maybe like if I had to pick number one, I would say the whole sequence that combined like Min telling Rand like her vision that connects to him, and then interspersing like the Tigraine and Tam scene. I love that whole bit up from episode 7. So that was awesome. That's what I got. So Rajesh, what do you have?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I think there's not like one big scene that's like, oh my God, this is my favorite scene, but it's just the small moments in the season that stick out. Like one of my favorites is, we kind of talked about it, is with not Alcy, but I think Helga Grinwell and the scene with Matt and the Brigida doll. I love that scene. I was so happy when she said, this is Brigida. And then I instantly said like, oh my God, if you just did this because you're cutting Brigida, I'm going to be so mad at you.
No, they can't do that. That's unacceptable.
That's not exactly. But that scene was just wonderful. And Matt, Barney Harris crushed it. I mean,
so good.
So good. In terms of big spectacular moments, obviously the end of episode 4 with the Raging Sun and that score from Lauren Wolf is just so good. I love that moment. It was the moment where I was like, okay, this show has me now. I'm really on board, I think, because I wasn't quite there initially. The pilot was a little rough, and then it got better and better, and then I think episode 4 really nailed it.
Yeah, basically like episodes like 1, 2, 3, 4, each one was getting better and better and better. And then after there it's like up and down a little bit, but like absolutely episode 4 is awesome, the whole thing, but the ending is
Nynaeve healing was my favorite scene in the series so far. Her shanking the Trolloc in the pool was pretty great.
It's pretty good.
You know, pushing Nynaeve or going off the cliff was pretty good.
Nynaeve was just basically pretty much badass the whole time, which is awesome.
Some of the random scenes I liked were like the Matt or Rand muttering under their breath some random insult or something. There was one with Dana, I can't remember exactly what he said. That was pretty funny. There was that comment about he said something about Dana and he said something about both of us. What? I can't remember the exact wording.
If she's up for it.
Yeah, that was it. And then there was a
Matt
scene,
has some really good lines.
in the ways, Loyal was saying something about we need to be patient or something, and Rand just mutters under his breath, if we be patient, if we have to be his level patient, we're gonna
We're gonna
die of
die.
old age or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah, that
asking
was
for
good.
patience. We're all gonna die. It was
Yeah.
just
We're all gonna die here.
perfect.
Yeah,
That was so good. And that line was supposed to be Barney Harris's, but
100%.
but it was still good with Rand. Actually, and that was funny too. Like what was the line like when Matt is like, "Oh, you're funny now? That's a new wrinkle," or something like that. Because Rand did have some funny lines too.
I think that line really worked with with Rand, because we
Yeah.
see Rand's interactions with Loyal more.
Yeah.
And
it
so I
does.
think that really worked, actually.
Yeah.
I agree, because like he knows Loyal better than
Yeah.
anybody
Yeah.
else at that point. Totally.
So I loved all the one-liners.
There were some good ones. Yeah. I that was one thing that like impressed me too, and like I wasn't necessarily expecting, like just some of the line deliveries, just like the single lines. I mean, Matt had a lot of them, but like Lan had a lot of them. Like there were like surprising characters with these one-liners, and some of them were just like really good.
Land to Nynaeve, you're invited to the fire if you don't push me in it.
Yeah, totally. Like I love a lot of those things like that, and I love those moments of humor, because like that it's there in the books too. Like there's so much like seriousness and horror and all these other elements, but the humor is always there, and I just that was important that there was that in the show too, and I like that.
Yeah, I needed the show to keep that in. I was very happy that they kept it.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna move on to scenes that we dislike the most. Rajesh, what do you got?
Okay, I did have super strong dislikes. So, but I think what I'll say is that I didn't really as much. I was super happy that we got Baalzamon, because I didn't think we were gonna get him.
Mhm.
But in reality, I didn't really enjoy any of his appearances. Really, as brief as they were. I guess I didn't really like the way that he looked, or like kind of like the jump scares that he was providing. And I guess in this case, I miss kind of like the ranting that he usually does in the books. So I don't know what's going to happen going forward. I wonder if we're done with Baalzamon, because we see she say kind of like it's hard to have a conversation like this. So I wonder if that means we're done with that, or if we see him come back as Baalzamon in the Dark Friend Social. So I'm really curious.
That's true. That's true. So it was like the dreams specifically that you didn't like, because you liked him as like,
the threat. Yeah.
At the end, he didn't call himself Baalzamon or Ishamael or anything. He was just whatever. Yeah. But you like that. But yeah, that was interesting. Like I didn't like at first I liked it, because like I didn't think that the whole like ranting Baalzamon that we get in the books would really work. So I liked how they went about it, but yeah, like it's I see what you're getting at there.
They also changed the Eye of the World, so I guess it didn't make sense for him to be kind of like, do you really think the Eye of the World is going to serve you, and whatever other kind of nonsense he says in the first book. So since there's no kind of pool of sightings, so
true.
But
true.
Okay. My thought
Max,
on
what
that.
were your thoughts on that? Yeah, go ahead.
My thought on that would be, if anything, I wish they would dial that up to 11. His psychological torture and the dreams. It's like we got it a few times and just kind of like dropped off. And it's like I wish we'd have had more of that, because like the horror side of the show, I wish they would have made it a little more on the horror side than what we got.
Yeah.
And we get it for like 3 episodes, but then it goes away for like 5 and 6.
That's true.
Something.
Yeah.
Suante makes mention of bad dreams with Baalzamon, and we don't get it.
Yeah. That was really interesting too. That like that was there, but we didn't see it. Yeah, I will be very curious to see how he comes into, like, I could definitely see him, not appearing as himself again, like sort of putting on the appearance of Baalzamon again for the Dark Friend Social, which I hope we get. But we'll see. Yeah. Okay. Max, what about you?
Oh, probably the one, I have 2 listed here. The first is Eglamar and the Wall. We mentioned it briefly in that one episode, but it essentially was the whole crossbow usage through the the slits, and
Mm-hmm.
just felt a little, I don't know, I didn't really quite like that. Just, yeah,
Yeah.
don't really know how else to explain it. The other thing I put down, and this kind of goes back to our Dragon Fang idea of
Mm-hmm.
scenes that we hated but we liked,
Yeah.
like they weren't
Yeah, that's fair
badly
too.
acted,
But just
was
like,
yeah.
yeah.
So like a villain moment of villainy, I put Almond Valda and Egwene and Perrin being tortured. The
Yeah.
whole what they did to Egwene with the bathing thing, that whole
Yeah.
scene was just like,
Ugh.
I don't like it, but for a villain scene that was great. But yeah.
Yeah, another way to go about
Yeah.
that, answering the question, right? Like it's a scene that's like makes your skin crawl, but
Yes.
like it's a good, like a well done scene. Yeah,
It's like
that was
that's
Darth
a good
Vader.
candidate for that.
It's like
Yeah.
Darth
Definitely on my
Vader.
short list. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, so I mean, I have to go to like my biggest issue with episode 8, which was just everything that happened with like Nynaeve when it looked like she was like burned out, dead, whatever.
Mhm.
Like I don't like that. And it's not that some people take issue like specifically with like Egwene healing her, and I don't actually have a problem with that. It's just that like I think they were trying to have it both ways. Like they were trying to make a distinction that like Nynaeve did not look as physically burned as the other women. So they're trying to show that she wasn't burned out or dead, but at the same time, I think they also wanted people to think that. And like Egwene seemed to think she was dead. And you definitely have confusion there. You have people thinking that she was dead. And if they haven't read the books and they don't know that you can't do that, that like Egwene like brought her back from the dead or something like that. So I don't like that at all. I don't think they should have like messed around with like having people think it's possible to undo something that extreme. So like I think the way I look at it is Nynaeve wasn't as that bad. Like she was hurt, but not that bad. And Egwene healed her, and I'm totally fine with that. I just don't like that they made it look like Nynaeve was worse, because I think that messes with things quite a bit. So that was my least favorite.
Yeah, I think it was a scene that I know rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. I think there are parts of it that were super interesting, with like adding layers of trust when you link with someone, because now you're kind of like in danger if things go horribly wrong. I like that aspect of it, but the fake out death stuff I did not like.
Exactly. And I feel like that too. Like, I don't mind that there might be some danger in linking. I think that might actually be better, because it makes the tool of linking less powerful in a way, or like the fact that there's some risk to it, narratively could be useful. So I don't mind that. And it's also possible that it's just the fact that like Amelisa didn't do it right, because she wasn't probably trained on that in the way that she should have been. So I'm fine with all of that, and I'm fine with Egwene healing an injury like instinctively without, because I think that that's something that wilders do. They don't have to be shown every single weave. Like if they really want to do something, they can do it instinctively. So I'm fine with that. But it's just the fake out deaths and the fact that some people are out there thinking that Nynaeve was like dead and brought back. I don't like that. So,
For me, I don't mind like what I call the pump fakes. I don't mind those.
Yeah.
If anything, I'm more curious on changes to the one power, how it's gonna like ripple effect through the show. So like you said, in the books, they can't heal death, and that's gonna make people think they can heal death in the show, but we don't know, for instance, that they can't heal death in the show.
Yeah.
Anything's possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I think a lot of people have questions about, is like use of the one power. And the truth is, we don't know a lot of it. Like there's lots of questions raised by things that came up in this season that we don't know. Like, and I think that's fine. Like we don't need to know everything. And I think that people sometimes forget that, like, not everything is explained right at the beginning. They can't drop that much knowledge on people. And it's okay that we don't know how everything works at this point. So yeah, I don't mind that. And as far as like people want to like get into like, oh, this is a plot hole or whatever, and I actually don't think that like there's necessarily any plot holes. Like it's like a plot hole is just something that might not be explained yet, but like it might be coming. So the one thing that like I thought of as like, unless they go back and explain it, I guess could be a plot hole, is like what happened to the dagger between when Moiraine took it from Matt and when Padan Fain got it. Like I could fill that in, but it would actually probably be nice if they filled that in for us at some point. But that would have to be going back to do it since we didn't get anything in the interim. But outside of that, like everything else that I can think of is just things that probably haven't been explained yet, but are probably going to get explained. So I don't know. That's my take on that.
I was just going to mention, when you mentioned Fane's the dagger, clearly Fane was the man in North Harbor.
Yeah.
I think so too. I totally think so too. And I think there's I mean, like I said, I can draw connections with all kinds of things for Fane, but I think they kind of need to fill in some of those gaps. Ideally.
And I think if they do that, it'll be like kind of one of those things like you sometimes see in the books when you go reread, because it'll be like, maybe they fill in the gaps explicitly, and then when you go rewatch it, you'll see those pieces in season 1 that were kind of there.
Yeah. And there are, I think, you know, like for instance, they do show subtly that Fane knows where they're staying. Like he could be watching their inn because he knows they're there. They did show that. So there's little things like that, but I still think they should go and fill in some of those gaps. But mostly I think anything that someone's like, oh, that's a plot hole, it's like, no, it's just like normal narrative stuff where like not everything's been explained yet. Like it'll like come, but yeah. Anyway, all right. So let's go on. So Max, who were your favorite or least favorite casting choices? Like, you know, cast members. What do you think?
Probably won't surprise anyone, but Zoe Robbins for Best Actor. When I first saw the trailer and her one line, I wasn't really impressed with that line about, you know, who are you, stranger, or whatever it was.
Oh yeah.
It actually felt pretty weak, but everything I've seen afterwards been astounding for her.
So good.
You know, obviously, you know, Rosamund Pike's gonna be up there in the acting list of Best Actor or whatever, but to me, Zoe Robbins, being this former Power Ranger, did a really great job. For worst actor, I put I cannot pronounce his name, Michael Tuhine, the guy who played Bran Alvear. He had one line and it just it didn't fall right for me. It just felt flat, and it felt like he got cut off by Egwene.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He wasn't really kind of like, you know, he was kind of not there. Yeah. Okay. Fair. Yeah. This is like a tougher one because for me, like if I look at the whole like cast, like it's really good. Like this is the thing that I love the most about the show so far is I just think the casting is stellar. And what impressed me the most is like, even in some really small roles, you have some really great acting. So like we mentioned a couple of them, right? Like the scene with like Matt and the little girl, like what a great job like she did. We talked about like Dana and how strong her scenes were. I mean, I think of things like the cold open with like young Swan and her father, like wow, he did a really amazing job. There's just so many like small parts that like Tigraine, like amazing, so good. So there's so many like really standout smaller performances, and everybody was really solid. So it's hard for me to really pick a favorite. I think I was particularly impressed with like Daniel Henney as Lan also. Like I just think it's a hard part to play because he has that sort of like, you know, stoic outer, you know, layer, you know, but they had some good writing for him. So I appreciated that too. Like, I think that helped, but like, he just did a wonderful job. So anyway, but they're all really good. And I don't even feel like there were any bad castings. The only thing I'll say that fell a little flat for me, and I'm not sure this has to do with the actors, or it might just be the fact that the scene was in the old tongue, but I felt like the Luz Theron, Telamon, and Latra scene, like they just, didn't pop for me as much as I wanted it to. And I don't think that's necessarily the actors, but it might be the fact that they were performing in the old tongue, which was cool.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That was the scene that was probably a little bit flatter for me than I wanted it to be.
It's such a difficult cold open to follow after the blood stuff.
Oh, well, there's that too, right? Because
Yeah.
that was the best.
Yeah.
And then you have that one, which was, one of the weaker ones. But yeah. What about you, Rajesh?
So it's as far as like, I mean, casting is just, I thought it was pretty great, and like KVH, and they just nailed it. So it just feels like I would just be listing all the actors, like
All of them.
Barney
They're all
Harris and
so
Zoe
good.
and Alvaro. So I think I'll just do a special shout out to Maria Doyle Kennedy, because I think she was great. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of the Tinkers and the books, but I think what they did in the show was so good, and her scenes were just riveting. I enjoyed it so much. I could totally rewatch it, and just totally selling the Way of the Leaf and everything. And so I just wanted to mention the Tinkers.
She's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I would I'll throw Daryl McCormack in there too, because he somehow managed to make Aram really charming and likable. I really like him. I'm like, this is a character. I'm like, go away, I don't want anything to do with you. But he's awesome. So yeah, well done.
Yeah.
You know, if we're gonna do honorable mentions, I gotta do the actress who played Alana.
Oh gosh, yeah, she's so good.
Especially the after show stuff where you're finding out the whole eating thing.
Oh yeah.
Or she's had food just tucked away in her pouches between takes.
Yeah.
She's so charming. It just makes you again like a character that you're like, do I like Alana? Why? And even Kate Fleetwood playing Leandra. Now I'm not surprised because I knew she was amazing. But Leandra as a character in the book is kind of flat. She's just one-dimensional kind of character. And she's just much more interesting in the show.
You know, I also to mention Steve, the best gray man in the whole series. We've had to find him.
Right, you're right. He is the best gray man.
Somewhere.
Perfect. He's somewhere in there.
Yeah.
He's a gray man, or he's an IEO. One of the two.
That's another possibility. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. So anybody that was a little weaker for you, Rajesh, that you wanted to say? Or...
No, I mean,
it's so hard.
The easy one to throw under the bus is Brand Elvier. I think it was just not, but it was what was it, 1-2 minutes of screen time?
If that,
yeah.
Well, I mean, he really had I think 2 lines. Yeah.
He went to his daughter and said get her serve some food, and then he gets interrupted oh.
Yeah, he's I was worried about you, and then basically Daisy's come here, let's drink, and then that was it.
Yeah, there wasn't much for him to make of that, I guess. So I actually thought he was gonna die going into that first episode. I'm they're gonna kill him, but then they didn't, because I guess maybe nobody would have been that worked up about it.
It could have been worse. It could have been Sambuid, where you were a named character and now you're just a mean old guy.
Yeah. They can always cast him later, like they did with they had to make Ingtar into Lord Yakota because they had to kill him. So all right. And so now we're gonna talk about the writers. So this one's hard too. But so best and worst writers, or really I'm just saying I think from my understanding of the way these things work, it's you have an episode that will be as written for television by, and they'll list a name, but then you also have a whole bunch of other writers working on all of them. So I feel it's maybe a little bit unfair to just single out people for particular episodes. So I'm kind of more focused on the episodes which I thought was the strongest writing or whatever. So the 2 episodes to me that were kind of at the top and just overall in terms of episodes, and this could come down to not just writing but also directing as well. But there was episode 4, which was written by Dave Hill.
Yep.
And then episode 7, which was credited to both Amanda Kate Schumann and Catherine B. And those were, I think, like the strongest episodes. But like, you know, again, but maybe it, like the directing definitely comes in those episodes too. So it's hard to say, but those were strong ones for me. And then weirdly, I guess, like, so Rafe Judkins is credited with episodes 1 and 8, which are probably like the 2 of the weaker episodes. So I guess he gets that distinction, but it feels weird because like I'm sure like he's involved with everything. So, and again, like I don't think it's really just one person in any case. So, but those 2 episodes are had more of the issues, and I feel bad for like the episode 8 because I feel like in particular that's like one that clearly had to be rewritten, you know. So that's where some of the flaws might have come in there.
I would say that mine was also Dave Hill for episode 4. Basically that was my favorite episode, so the writer naturally has to be that writer. And Rafe is the only other Redditor credited, so it's like, is he the worst or the best? I don't know. He's somewhere.
Okay.
And
I think we're go ahead.
I want to say from what we kind of know is like it's almost written by committee almost, but not quite.
I think so. Yeah.
And I want to say that Rafe is like the trying to guide them back towards the books instead of away from, like the whole Bear Brother thing. That was a writer room thing. And he was like, no.
Yeah. Although that was really Sarah, my understanding was like she was the one who was leading the charge against that.
I think he was like pushing her towards them,
hopefully
behind her.
Yeah. I can't imagine he was excited about Bear Brothers either.
So, you know, it's hard to say. For worst.
Yeah, it is, because again, I think it's never just one person. But Rajesh, what about you?
Yeah, I think we have to go universal on this one. Dave Hill for episode 4, because it was the only episode I think where I watched the whole episode and I felt like I didn't have any problems with it.
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed it. And yeah, Rafe, unfortunately, for episodes 1 and 8, which I thought were the most divisive. I had more problems with episode 1. And I think I slowly got over it. And then I feel like that caught up to a lot of people with episode 8, where a lot of people had problems with episode 8. And I mean, I enjoyed it, but I think a lot of people did not enjoy episode 8. And I don't know how much of it that's Rafe, or is it just because his name is on the opener and the finale, which are naturally going to be kind of big event plot episodes. So it might, there's just more focus there also.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, episode 1, like my only thing with it really was just that, like, I felt like the end of it was rushed. Like getting to that end, like the pacing was just not ideal. So that was my main thing with it. But, and then really just the fact that like it got better from there, right? Like episode 1 wasn't terrible. It was just that like it started at a certain level and like it was building to get better and better from there. And then like the pacing issue kind of stopped being an issue after that first episode. And episode 8 was like, there were some highs in that episode. Like there were some really good things. But then there was probably that was the episode that had the most things that I probably would have tweaked if I could have. But I still enjoyed it. Like I definitely enjoyed that episode more than apparently a lot of people did, even like in spite of some of those things, because maybe just there were certain things that did work for me that worked well enough that it like elevated the episode. But I would have tweaked some things more in that episode than any other, if I could.
You know, on like director side of things, I can't really say if I know a director's name who's like the best or the worst or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, like for Perrin's character, how they were directing his character in the later episodes. Because like I really enjoyed him 1 through like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But afterwards,
he was really good in 5.
Yeah. Afterwards, it just like fell off.
It's
so
true.
It's like I didn't like their direction for his character.
Yeah. And I think that's like, I don't know if that's a writer thing or what, because like, again, I think it might have come down to like Barney Harris being gone, and they're like, okay, well, we need to use Perrin to do some other things. And it wasn't just Perrin, but like, maybe he was the one that was most easy to move around or whatever. And it didn't quite work as well as it could have. But you're right, he was great for like the first 5 episodes, I would say, because episode 5 was like a really good Perrin episode. I like that one a lot. And directing, we didn't really talk about this, but like, I mean, episodes 3 and 4, they were both directed by Wayne Yip. Those were like some really solid episodes. So like, and then I feel like 7 and 8 were like mixed, right? Because like 7 was great for me, and they had that opening, like cold open, which was so wonderful from Kieran Donnelly. And then like, but then 8, you know, was like, you know, so that was a mixed bag. I don't know.
Yeah.
5 and 6 were pretty solid too.
Yeah, I think all the directors were great. Maybe had one episode which was weaker of their 2. No complaints. Yeah. Directing side.
It looked like episodes 1 and 2 were by Uda.
Uda Braithwaite. Yeah. I mean, but like, you know, overall, like there's things to love about all the episodes, I think. All right, so let's sum up. All right, so we're ending here with, you know, how close we feel. We're rating things. So first of all, we're going to rate on how close we think the adaptation was to the source material. So rating out of 10, and we're starting with Rajesh again. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very close to source material and 1 not at all, where would you rate for closeness to the source material?
So I think I give it maybe like 6.5, and I don't think that it necessarily means it's bad. I just think I'm just grading this on
this isn't how you like it. This is just, you know, how close it is. It's its own independent thing.
So probably a 6.5. I think it hits a lot of the big points that are in Eye of the World. So, I mean, you know, from Shatterloga to the Ways and Machin and the Eye of the World and even Miles Amon. I mean, there are a lot of things that if you go back and you hear like pre-season 1 discussions, like people didn't think a lot of these things were even going to make it. So, but then there were like smaller moments where I think they could have adapted things for the book where they didn't. Kind of maybe like that goes back to the pilot again, where I was still kind of not kind of girded my loins for exactly how things were going to be different. Because there are like little things where like I would expect like maybe Rand to see the Murdral, you know, when they're coming into town, and then the boys would kind of discuss it, and that would start their fear of the strangers. And like all of that. I was
expecting that too.
Yeah. And like all that little stuff that could have still been there was not there in places. That's just one example. I'm sure there are others, you know, because like the things like Bearlawn being out, I can understand, but this is like when they're still in Emmons Field. So
got it. Yeah.
So I'd say about a 6.5 personally.
Okay. And Max, what about you?
Well, say if I were looking at like just the first 4 episodes, I would have put it like 6 or 8. But as the series as a whole, it comes down to a 4, just because after 4 it diverges quite a bit from the books. You know, obviously 5, great to have that backstory, but didn't really have anything to do with the books, you know, as much as we saw. Moraine, Lan, everybody wasn't in Tar Valon. Obviously, it's a change. The way Gates happening the way they did, it's a bit of a change, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, 4 is not a bad thing, because like, if this were like the movie I, Robot, it'd be a 0 out of 10. You know, pretty much most movie book adaptation series are around like the 6 to 8 range, with a lot being far lower. So it's not a make or break it for the score.
Okay. But no, are you averaging those? Because you said it's like a 6 to 8 for the first and a 4 after, or you're saying 4 is your average?
Is my total, because like
that's your average.
After episode 4, it's probably like a 2.
Okay.
So
interesting. Yeah. So I ended up closer to Rajesh. I had it at a 6, because I think overall I'm looking at it as going, it's closer to the books than not, right? Like, yeah, there are a lot of changes that you can point to. But like, you know, you could, I don't know, to me, if I that's just, I'm looking at it in a much like macro sense, like, because you can, yeah, definitely get more particular in this episode or that episode, but if I think about it on the whole, is it closer to the books or than not? I'm at a 6 overall. All right, so back to you, Rajesh. Like, now rating your just overall enjoyment of the show. Again, 1 to 10, 10 being the most, 1 the least. Just your enjoyment of the show, regardless of how close it is to the book or not. So if you had just never read the books or whatever.
I think it's well, it was like a 7.5. I thought it was very enjoyable. I mean, just talking about it during the show today, we're just remembering all those little moments that we've had that we enjoyed throughout the show. Is just, I just remember those over kind of the negative things, and I just remember the things that made me happy and things that I enjoy rewatching and stuff like that. I thought it was solid, with room for improvement for sure, but it was good 7.5.
Okay, Max.
Right. So I just rewatched, binged the whole series this weekend, and looking at it as a non-book reader, putting all that on the sideline, I put it around 8. I would say like Shadow and Bone would be like a 7. Never read those books, and I like this more than that.
Yeah.
First season of Witcher is probably like 6.5 for whatever reason, but my average with the lower score for the source material and the higher grade for not seeing it, I put it about a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
With obvious room for improvement for season 2, which I assume is going to be a lot better than first season.
Maybe, yeah. I haven't watched the second season yet. I've been putting that off.
Of what?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
I'm assuming the second season of Wheel of Time is going to be a lot better than the first season.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Okay. So you're giving us your total. Like you're sort of averaging it out like at a 7. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So not having a non-book reader, I put an 8. Having average them both together, it's about a 7. Just a 1 point deduction.
And then Rajesh, so before I move on, like for you then, like your overall factor, if you're factoring in the how close it is to the books and just your overall enjoyment, like factoring both of those things in, do you have an overall rating for the season?
Yeah, I'd be at a 7 for sure, I think.
Okay. So for me, I felt like my rating for like just enjoyment, regardless of book changes, is an 8 out of 10. And to be honest, like my overall is still at an 8 because just I think even though the closeness to the books is lower, that doesn't really impact it for me. Like that doesn't make it better or worse, like how close it is. I mean, granted, if it was like a 0 or a 1 or whatever, like then it probably would, but at that sort of extreme level. But it's changed a lot from the books, but because I feel like it's overall more similar than not, it's not enough to factor into my overall rating for it, so yeah,
I completely understand. I completely understand that because I mentioned iRobot earlier.
Yeah,
it's like a 0 out of 10 for book adaptation.
Yeah,
but on a pure enjoyment level, it's probably a 6 to 8.
Yeah,
it wasn't a box office huge success, but it was worth watching.
Yeah,
there's a movie called Sahara, which is based on a book. That's probably about a 2 out of 10. But the movie with Matthew McConaughey, standard action, funny stuff, 6, 7. You'll watch if it's on TV.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
having a 0 isn't a killer.
Yeah, it just sometimes it it just depends. Like, I mean, for me, I think if Wheel of Time had been a 0 out of 10 or a 1 or a 2 out of 10, even in terms of like similarity to the books, then that probably would have pulled down my overall rating or enjoyment. But with it being at a 6, it just doesn't factor in. So like, it just depends what it is, I think. So yeah, but like we were all saying here, I think there's that room for improvement which is great, because I think that's pretty much always the case. Like, I was thinking about it, and it's like, is there any single show you can think of that had more than like 1 or 2 seasons where the first season was the best? Because like I can't really think of any,
And
where
you don't
like
want their first season to be the peak.
you don't, and like the only time when that's the case is when the show has like 1 or 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Other than that, I can't think of a single show where the first season was the best.
I was going to mention too, Star Trek Discovery. The
Okay.
first season was very divisive among Star Trek fans. The
Mhm.
second season was kind of blah, but
Mhm.
3 and 4 really picked up, and now people won't shut up about it.
Okay. Well, and that's probably somewhat unusual that like it gets that far
Mhm.
when it, so that's the tricky thing, right? But in this case, I'm not worried about that because this
Yeah.
is, I think, a very solid season, and like I don't think that it's at that level where you're like, oh, it's on the borderline there, But I think when something is, then it may never get to that point where it gets to, hit its stride.
Yeah.
But I'm not worried about that here. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's it. Unless you guys, either of you wanted to add anything else.
Oh, it
Not
was
much.
solid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to be back for season 2 whenever
Yeah.
that may happen. Really appreciate you joining us, Rajesh. That's been awesome having you.
Thanks for having me. Yep.
Of course. Yeah. So I guess that's it for tonight. And we will be back next talking about The Witcher. See, we're going to do season 1, and then I don't know, we'll do season 2 at some point also, but we're starting with season 1, and I think that's it. So don't forget to subscribe and come back and check us out talking about The Witcher as an adaptation. And Glenn's not here to say it, so I'll say it. Don't forget to be awesome.